Rare Bourbons List: 10 Hard-to-Find Spirits. Bourbon is different from other whiskeys because it has its specific requirements for the production process. While it has its standards, not all bourbons are created equal. Here's the Rare Bourbons list with bottlings called unicorns because it is frequently discussed but rarely seen. 10. Orphan Barrel Whoop and Holler 28-year-old American whiskey. Average price: roughly $249.99. Drizzly. Alcohol content: 42%. Why it's rare. Orphan Barrel Whoop and Holler is a 28-year-old bourbon whiskey, and it is an elderly bourbon made using a one-time release mash bill. As expected on this bottling, it has bitter notes with tons of oak, but it features other sweet notes like very ripe bananas, bubblegum, vanilla, and cinnamon. 9. Blue Run 14-year-old small batch bourbon. Average price: roughly $1. Alcohol content: 56.5%. Why it's rare. Blue Run Small Batch is a distinctive, bold whiskey impeccably crafted and aged to perfection. It is sold out on their website, and your chance to score this bottle depends on secondary markets. 8. William Heavenhill 13-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Average price: roughly $799. Continental wine and spirits. Alcohol content: 50%. Why it's rare. William Heavenhill 13-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey is produced by Heaven Hill Distillery. Based on caskers, it has the second largest bourbon inventory in the world. It is a limited edition bourbon whiskey, and this release came from 35 barrels only. It is not as expensive as other bourbons, but it fits nicely on bourbon shelves because of its great taste. 7. John E. Fitzgerald Very Special Reserve Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Average price: roughly $3,999.99. Bourbon Concierge. Alcohol content: 45%. Why it's rare. John E. Fitzgerald Very Special Reserve Kentucky Straight Bourbon is a rare bourbon, and it was distilled by Stitzel Weller and bottled by Heaven Hill Distillery. The bourbon whiskey was aged for 23 years and was migrated in steel tanks in 2013 to avoid overaging that may affect the tasting notes of the best bourbon. Since it is non-chill filtered, the bourbon whiskey retains more fatty acids and natural esters during the aging process, which culminates in a richer mouthfeel. 6. Buffalo Trace Double Eagle Very Rare Bourbon. Average price: roughly $15,399.99. Drizzly. Alcohol content: 45%. Why it's rare. Double Eagle Very Rare Bourbon is aged twice as the Eagle Rare, 10 years, and comes in a complimentary decanter with crystal-carved eagles. A few bottles are produced, and all the bottles hitting shelves are individually numbered with a letter of authenticity. It is one of the best bourbon whiskeys with a surprisingly balanced flavor after 2 decades of aging. It has hints of toasted oak, caramel, dark chocolate, and vanilla. 5. Old Rip Van Winkle 25-year-old Bourbon. Average price: roughly $64,999. Cask Cartel. Alcohol content: 50%. Why it's rare. Old Rip Van Winkle is a 25-year-old bourbon whiskey from the Van Winkle family, and there are only 710 decanters distilled from their own distillery. Each bottle of Old Rip Van Winkle comes with numbered certificates and wooden boxes made from the staves of barrels where the distillery once stored the whiskey. 4. IH Hirsch Reserve 1974 16-year-old straight bourbon. Average price: roughly $19,999.99. Bourbon Concierge. Alcohol content: 45.8%. Why it's rare. Hirsch Reserve 1974 is a 16-year-old straight bourbon, one of the most sought-after and highest-rated bottling vintage whiskey. Because of its rarity, the bourbon is included in the book written by Charles K. Cowdery, The Best Bourbon You'll Never Taste. There are only 400 barrels for this batch, and Gordon Hugh acquired it in 1989 before Julian Van Winkle bottled it as Hirsch Reserve. 3. Michter's limited release 25-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Average price, roughly $23,009. Cask Cartel. Alcohol content, 58.1%. Why it's rare. Based on Maxim, fewer than 400 bottles of Michter's limited release 25-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon made it one of the rarest and most expensive bourbons today. Aside from their small batch and cask strength bourbon, this limited release is well acknowledged by different award-giving bodies like Whiskey Advocate. 2. Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. Average price, roughly $1,264. Wine Searcher. Alcohol content, 52%. Why it's rare. Every September 2nd of the year, Old Forester releases their birthday bourbon to honor the birthday of their founder, George Garvin Brown. The 2021 Old Forester Birthday Bourbon comprises 119 barrels and has matured for 12 years. The distillery chose the 12-year-old bourbon to be part of this year's release. 1. Pappy Van Winkle's Family Reserve Straight Bourbon. MSRP, $199.99. Average price, roughly $9,999.99. Cask Cartel. Alcohol content, 45.2%. Why it's rare. Call it the Pappy Van effect or marketing strategy, but Pappy Van Winkle's Family Reserve Straight Bourbon is the rare bourbon today. The Pappy Van Winkle bottlings from the Van Winkle family are so rare that the secondary market sells the wheated bourbon for skyrocketing prices, even though it has its MSRP. Aside from the Family Reserve Straight Bourbon, the Pappy Van Winkle 23 and Pappy Van Winkle 25 are sought after because of their rarity. Rare bourbons are hard to find because of their premium quality, limited production, and longer aging. They get more expensive in secondary markets because of the demand and scarcity. Rare bourbon whiskeys can be a good investment because rare bourbon whiskeys appreciate in value, especially when taken care of. If you like the video, share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.